Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Ono, and I wanted to read you this book. This book is called Marshmallow. It's by Claire Turlay Newberry. She did both the illustrations and the writing. Marshmallow. Here's our title page. Marshmallow. Stories and pictures by Claire Turlay Newberry. And this is called the dedication page, boys and girls. This page, it says it is for Ellen Kearns. And this book is very special to me because when I was a little girl, I heard this book, and when I got a pet bunny, I named it Marshmallow. Oliver was a cat of middle age, gray with tabby markings. He was a bachelor without wife or kittens and lived in an apartment in Manhattan. A housekeeper, Miss Tilly, who had been with him since kittenhood, looked after the place and prepared his meals. Many a cat has to catch his dinner before he can eat it, but Oliver was lucky. When he was hungry, all he had to do was mention the fact to Miss Tilly, and she would open the refrigerator and get out his liver or chopped beef. Peace and quiet was what he wanted. As Oliver never went out, he did not know that the world was full of other animals. How could he, when he had never met any of them, socially or otherwise? The only mice in his life were the gray flannelette ones filled with catnip that he received at Christmas, and the nearest thing to a rabbit he had ever seen was a stuffed plush Easter bunny that had been given to Miss Tilly with a box of candy. But Oliver did not care. Peace and quiet was what he wanted, and his meals on time. Life, however, cannot always be like that. One day, Miss Tilly called him from the kitchenette. "Kitty, kitty," she called, "come here, I have a surprise for you." "Meow," replied Oliver, and he hurried to the kitchenette, expecting to find dinner served in its usual place under the sink. But it wasn't dinner this time. Miss Tilly really did have a surprise for him. She was smiling at something she held in her two cupped hands. It was small, white, and furry. "What do you think of this, Oliver?" she said. "Its name is Marshmallow." She held the furry thing to her cheek for a moment, as though it were a very nice furry thing indeed. Then she set it on the floor. It had tall ears, pink eyes, a wiggly nose, and twitchy whiskers. And to Oliver's dismay, it was alive. Oliver was appalled. He took one wild look at the creature, and then he squinched his eyes shut tight, as if he could not bear the sight of it. "Oliver, what's the matter with you?" cried Miss Tilly. "Don't tell me you're afraid of this little tiny baby bunny." But Oliver was afraid. He was too frightened even to run away, but he crouched in the corner of the kitchenette, opening and closing his eyes as if it actually hurt them to look at the rabbit. As for Marshmallow, he paid no attention to anybody. He was a very unhappy little bunny. All he wanted was to be home again with his nice, warm, furry mother. If he had been a kitten, he would have mewed. If he had been a puppy, he would have howled. And if he had been a baby, he would have cried his eyes out. But being a bunny, he just sat still and felt sad. However, he cheered up a bit when he had his dinner, a raw carrot with its green top and a bowl of rolled oats, dry, not cooked, the way people like them. The bowl said dog on it, for the shop where Miss Tilly had bought Marshmallow did not have any dishes with rabbit or bunny on them. But as Marshmallow could not read, this did not much matter. He ate the green carrot top first, for he was thirsty. Then he munched part of the carrot. After that he tried the rolled oats, eating with little quick nibbles. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And with his front paws in the dish, When he had finished eating, he hopped into the bowl and he took a nap. That night, Marshmallow slept in the bathroom. Miss Tilly made him a bed out of a folded towel so he could be comfortable, but it was not the same as having a soft, furry mother to cuddle against. Still, he did not cry. Nor did he yowl for his breakfast the next morning. "If only you were nice and quiet like that, Oliver," yawned Miss Tilly, when Oliver woke her, as he always did, with frantic scratching and meowings at her bedroom door. He was even earlier than usual this morning because he was so excited over having a new animal in the house. Miss Tilly warmed some chopped beef for him, gave Marshmallow another carrot, and made herself some coffee and toast. And then she sat down at her typewriter and wrote, "A poem in praise of rabbits. A bunny is a quiet pet. A bunny is the best thing yet. A bunny never makes a sound. A bunny's nice to have around. Puppies whimper, bark, and growl. Kittens mew and tomcats yowl. Birdies twitter, chirp, and tweet. Moo cows moo and lambkins bleat. Some creatures bellow, others bray. Some hoot or honk or yap or neigh. Most creatures make annoying noises, even little girls and boyses. A bunny, though, it's never heard. He simply never says a word. A bunny's delightful habit. No home's complete without a rabbit." That morning, Oliver felt much better and braver. He hardly squinched his eyes at all when he looked at the bunny now, and by afternoon he was watching Marshmallow with an expression that would have frozen the blood of an older and wiser rabbit. Marshmallow, however, was a very young rabbit, so young that he scarcely noticed what went on around him. He was like a tiny new baby that can't yet focus his eyes. He ate when he was hungry, and the rest of the time he slept, with his paws tucked up under him to keep them warm. He certainly didn't act very dangerous, and presently Oliver grew bolder. He began creeping toward the sleeping bunny, his eyes glaring wickedly. But just as he lashed his tail and got ready to spring, Miss Tilly cried, "Oliver, don't you dare hurt that bunny." Oliver sat up, blinking innocently, as if to say, "Why, Miss Tilly, what an idea. I wouldn't dream of such a thing." "This just isn't going to work out," she told herself sadly. "Cats always have hunted rabbits, and I suppose they always will." She put Oliver in the other room, and after that she did not let him come near Marshmallow. Soon Marshmallow began to notice more, just as any baby does as it grows up. He went lopping around the apartment, sniffing things and then tasting them, and nearly everything seemed to taste pretty good. He nibbled the rugs, working very hard in one place until he had gnawed a little bare spot before moving on. He stood on his hind legs, and he yanked books out of bookcases. He chewed the chair and table legs, and every time Miss Tilly sat down for a moment, he came hopping up cheerfully to untie her shoelaces. He was a very busy little bunny. Marshmallow was the only live rabbit Miss Tilly had ever known personally, and she was surprised to find that he nibbled so many things besides carrots. She wrote another poem on her typewriter, which she called "A Solemn Warning to Rabbit Lovers." A bunny nibbles all day long. A bunny doesn't think it's wrong. He nibbles mittens, mufflers, mops. He only pauses when he hops. He nibbles curtains, lamp, cords, shoes. He only stops to take a snooze. Sofa pillows, ribbons, rugs. He takes a mouthful, then he tugs. Galoshes, boxes, books, and string. A bunny nibbles everything. Hmm. Whenever Miss Tilly went out, she left the two animals in separate rooms, for she did not trust Oliver. One afternoon she stayed out later than usual, and when Oliver woke up from his nap, there was no dinner waiting for him under the sink. He thought he'd better remind her about it, so he trotted to the door of the other room and said, "Meow." There was no answer, but he could hear odd sounds in the next room, small scuffling noises that caused his eyes to widen and his ears to point suddenly forward. These sounds were made by Marshmallow's little feet. As he went lippity lippity around the room, skidding every now and then on the hardwood floor, Marshmallow was feeling happy. He had eaten all the carrot he wanted and quite a lot of new magazine that Miss Tilly had carelessly left on the floor. When she went out, he had discovered her old plush Easter bunny on the sofa and had thoroughly nibbled off its whiskers. He was just frolicking about the room, skidding merrily on the smooth hardwood floor and kicking up his heels for sheer joy of being an alive bunny. On the other side of the door, Oliver was listening and sniffing and listening while his eyes grew bigger and bigger. "Prow," he said again, and scratched impatiently at the door. When this did no good, he stood up on his hind legs and patted at the doorknob. Finally, he reached up both fore paws, and with one on each side of the knob, he worked it this way and that way. At last, there was a small click. The door swung ajar, and Oliver padded silently into the next room. And there was that rabbit skipping about as if he hadn't a care in the world. He didn't see Oliver come in, but went on playing a little game. He had just that moment invented. He would dash several feet in one direction, suddenly stop, and spring into the air. And then he would turn, dash back in the other to the starting point, and jump again, back and forth, back and forth. It was a very happy and pretty sight. Oliver watched it with great interest. Each time the little rabbit whisked by him, he lashed his tail and got ready to spring. But somehow he couldn't quite make up his mind to do it. Perhaps he remembered that Miss Tilly had told him not to hurt the bunny. Or perhaps he was still just a little bit afraid of it. Suddenly, Marshmallow sat up and stared at the cat, his soft nose twitching. He looked most inquisitive, but not in the least alarmed. What was this great striped animal, he wondered? Could it possibly be his mother in a new fur coat? And while Oliver hesitated, trying to make up his mind to pounce, all at once Marshmallow scampered joyfully up to him and kissed him on the nose. Oliver flinched and drew back, aghast. Oh! Then curiosity overcame his fear, and he sniffed the bunny eagerly. Marshmallow shut his eyes and snuggled in close, blissfully happy to have found another furry animal. If this was not his mother, it must be at least a very near relation. Even when Oliver opened his jaws and took hold of him with his teeth, Marshmallow was not afraid. He lay quite still, and the next moment Oliver had let go and was licking his face as tenderly as any mother. Like a mother cat and a kitten. And like any mother cat, he licked the fur in the wrong direction so that it stood on end and looked all mussed up. But Marshmallow did not mind. He was so happy to have a mother's care at last. When Miss Tilly got home, she found them asleep on the floor, Oliver's head resting upon Marshmallow as though he were a little white fur pillow. After that, she let them play together every day, for she saw that they were friends. Then they romped around like two kittens. Wherever the cat went, Marshmallow followed, lippity lippity right at his heels, And when Oliver lay down to take a nap, he licked the fur in the wrong direction. The bunny cuddled up to him. The bunny cuddled up to him so close, as close as he could get. He could scarcely have loved Oliver more if he had been his own mother. Oliver forgot that he had ever thought that Marshmallow was a strange animal to be pounced upon. He adopted the little bunny, brought him up as his own kitten, often scrubbing him so thoroughly that his fur stood up on ends for hours. And although Oliver never said so, I cannot help thinking that in time he came to agree with Miss Tilly that a bunny's a delightful habit. No home's complete without a rabbit. Brighten your home with a bunny. He's fat, he's frisky, he's funny. He's soft, he's downy, he's cute, he's clownsy. Oh, brighten your home with a bunny. And there they are. And that is the end of this beautiful storybook called Marshmallow by Claire Turlay Newberry. Both the story and the pictures. And boys and girls, they won a Caldecott Honor Medal for great illustrations. One thing about bunnies and pets is that they don't always make the best pets. I understand you can litter box train bunnies, and I'm certain it wasn't mentioned in the story, but I'm sure her cat used a litter box, and so did the bunny, because he lived in an apartment and never got to go outside. It's a big responsibility to get a pet, and bunnies do bite. My bunny Marshmallow lived in a pen outside because my cat never got along with my bunny. They didn't have peace together. My cat never adopted the bunny, and my cat wanted to kill the bunny. So the bunny had to live outside in a pen, and every now and then it would escape, and Marshmallow would go eat the wrong things in the garden, and then my dad would get mad. And he would say, "We're going to have roast rabbit for dinner." And I would say, "No, I can't eat my rabbit." So they are more difficult as a pet than a cat or a dog. If you ever do get a bunny and decide that it's not the right pet, do not let it loose out in the wild. Maybe take it back to the pet store or give it to the Humane Society. The best thing to do is don't get a pet unless you plan on keeping it. These guys do chew up everything. I know, because mine did. Another reason I had to stay outside. I hope you enjoyed that book about Marshmallow, the rabbit